Tata Power in focus, posting a 55% jump in Q4 profits with strength across all businesses. The board has announced a 2 rupee per share dividend. It's one of India's largest independent power producers, with renewable energy also growing rapidly. And I'm pleased to say on that note, we're joined by Mr. Praveer Sinha, who is the CEO Managing Director of Tata Power. Mr. Sinha, it's good to have you in the show. Thank you very much for your time. The distribution side of the business really picked up, and generation was also very, very strong. I believe India's overall power generation grew at its fastest pace in over 3 decades in the fiscal year ending March 31st. How does that really contribute to how sustainable the business can be in terms of performance from here?
Good morning, Tanvir, and thank you for having me on the show. I think India's power sector has been growing. What we have seen in last 1 year, the growth has been nearly 9% in terms of the power demand and consumption. And I think what we see is that because of a lot of industrial activity and general growth in the GDP of the country, we do expect that the power demand will continue to be very robust. And for Indian power sector, this is a great opportunity not only to meet the present requirement, but also to add capacity, especially renewable capacity going forward. And Government of India is supporting that initiative. So I think all in all, for the power sector in India, there are huge tailwinds, huge opportunity, and we should see this sort of growth continuing in future too.
Right. You're looking at electricity output, obviously, ahead of the summer months being boosted as transmission and distribution segments see growth. I wonder when the months arrive, when the summer months arrive in a few weeks' time, do you sense that, that would wane? I mean, do you think the summer month demand and pickup in output can be sustained through the next few quarters?
I think so. The only challenge is that the weather pattern keeps on changing very frequently. We had a very warm and hot February, but then both March and April have been very moderated temperature. We do expect that in the months of May onwards, we will have huge demand of electricity, and the country is ready for that. In fact, last year the peak demand was 216 gigawatt. This year they are expecting that it would be around 230 gigawatts. So I think that the demand will continue at least for next 6 months, and may taper down in the later part of the year when the winter months set in. So I think for Tata Power and other power companies, this is a great opportunity. And also the transitioning that is taking place, where a lot of renewable capacity is getting added, that will also get a lot of push during this period.
And what's the adoption rate for that? I mean, what is the pace of transition that we are working with?
Well, you have seen that in last 5 years, nearly 60 gigawatt of solar plants have been set up. And the government has a very ambitious plan to add 50 gigawatt of renewable every year, going up to 2030. And a lot of bids are expected. Last year was not really a great year for the renewable because of the supply chain constraints from various parts of the world, including China. The prices were very high. But now that we have seen the softening of prices, we expect many of the projects which were bid out last year and could not be completed will get completed in next 12 months. So also many new bids are coming, and nearly 50 gigawatt of bids are expected in this financial year. And we do expect that that will help in adding capacity in next few years.
Right. I just want to circle back to, how the government's focus has been in terms of firing on all cylinders when it comes to meeting the increased demand for electricity through the summer months. And, there was some talk about how they wanted to expand output to ensure adequate supply when demand peaks through the months of April and May, which essentially meant firing coal-based power plants well in advance and on full capacity. How does that tie in with, the transition story that India is also pushing forward? Because it'll take a while for that transition to happen. In the meantime, India is still very much dependent on coal-based electricity generation. And so do you think that that maybe the timelines need to be revised here on how much can be achieved and by when?
So I think the transition will take few years. It is not possible to have large capacity added in 1 year or 2 years. But I think the direction in which it is going, we will have nearly 300 megawatt of new capacity. And this is mostly renewable capacity, which will get added till 2030. And when you have this sort of capacity coming into the grid, then your dependence on coal-based will come down drastically, and it will only be during periods when the renewable power is not able to supply. And when I talk about renewable, it's not just solar, but it's a solar and wind combination, where solar is typically used during daytime, and nighttime and evening time will be wind. We also are seeing a lot of push for storage, battery storage, as also pump storage. So I think I expect that in next 5 to 7 years, at least till 2030, we'll have continued use of coal, but it will get reduced to a very large extent. And hopefully after 2030, you will see more of renewables being operated and less of the coal-based plants being operated.
Right, but that's just one part of the story, sir, if you understand where I'm coming from on this one, because storage is, of course, one angle, but the infrastructure side on renewable generation, I don't know how much progress has been made at that front, but maybe you could enlighten us. Yeah, because the distribution angle is another important angle to the whole story. And, you know, with coal-based power plants and, you know, the generation to distribution supply chain, that's very deeply entrenched in India and very well laid out. So how do you kind of upend that and then, you know, or uproot that and then reroute it through the renewable end of power generation and that model?
So there are three parts of this question, and let me try to address. So one is the generation, and from generation, you have the transmission network. Fortunately, in India, we have one single grid which connects east to west and north to south. And the capacity additions are happening wherever new capacity is offered. Capacity addition for transmission is happening wherever new renewable projects are coming up. So we do see huge amount of transmission activities that is taking place. And it is all coinciding with the generation plan. So that is to a very large extent getting addressed. Unlike many other places where it takes 5 to 7 years to set up the transmission line, in our country we have been able to do it between 24 to 36 months, which is a very unique thing that is happening, and the type of clearances and approvals that are required is being expedited. The second is the distribution companies. There is a lot of discipline that has come in the distribution companies in their ability to pay, and the tariff revision, the loss reduction programs through smart metering. So many of the initiatives are getting implemented, and that will start showing results and have already, in fact, started showing results. The third part is also distributed generation. The renewable projects gives you the option of generating locally. We see large number of commercial and industrial enterprises moving towards using localized generation and localized usage of that power, and thereby the necessity of creating large transmission lines for these entities reduces drastically. So I think all in all, there is a great opportunity for India to really socialize and democratize the use of renewable energy. And I think directionally we are doing all the right thing. There may be some slips, some delays. You also know that India has started a very ambitious program of local manufacturing, right from polysilicon to the cell and module stage. So I think it's a matter of time before which we will be able to address all these issues comprehensively.
Mr. Sinha, as always, a pleasure speaking with you today to talk about the earnings and the outlook for the power sector in India. Thank you very much for your time. We'll be right back with the home stretch of Street Signs this Friday.